Live at the ocean front in a roundtable. Got a great panel here for you for this segment. Tim Anderson is with us, considering a run for Attorney General. Just had Jason Miera's on. He is running for Attorney General. He confirmed that on our show. Also, Senator Bill DeSteph, fresh from his power workout. He's
not running for Attorney General.
He was not running for Attorney General, but he might run for governor. Also with us, Senator Jen Kiggans is with us. She's going to run in 2025. And everybody's right for something. And then, of course, Bryce Reeves has graced us with his presence by phone. Now, we understand, we didn't want him here because we understand he's not shaved or cut his hair or taken a shower in what, 5 or 6 weeks? So we just said, look, just do phone, because this is, you have to marry at the oceanfront. It's by the Cavalier. Security probably wouldn't let you upstairs. So he's by phone. Senator Reeves, you're with Anderson, DeSteph, Jen Kiggans, and Kristen Cooper and me. Great to have you, man. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
No, I was just going to say it's great. It's great to be around good company. I'm just wondering when I'm going to see him again. We're on a 48-hour recall notice, so I'm kind of waiting to see when we go back to Richmond.
Well, let's talk about Richmond and the headline story we've got today on the Virginia Star. By the way, go to thevirginiastar.com. Thevirginiastar.com says Virginia Senate gives governor power to oust police officers. SB, I guess it was SB 530 or something. It's got a number of reforms in it, but basically there's a panel that can fire cops. What is up with that? And I'll let everybody weigh in. Start with Reeves.
Well, I would just tell you what it's doing is giving the ability for localities, should they choose the option, to set up police review boards. And I voted against the bill. I think it's a bad bill. I think there has to be some criteria, if you're even going to do that, to have people that have served in law enforcement, or at least have an understanding of it. And what you're going to run into is, depending on the political nature of the group that's put in there, they might be replacing chiefs, like you've seen in other states, that they don't like the way law enforcement is being enforced. And so I think it takes away authority from your police department, gives it to potential political appointees to do what they want to. And I think it's a very bad thing for law enforcement. That's my personal opinion, having been a cop.
Well, I think Jen, Bryce, and myself all voted no on that bill. It was a horrible bill. We have a police review board now in Virginia Beach that makes a recommendation to the chief of police. What you're doing is usurping the authority of the chief of police. Not a smart thing. You have a chief of police for a reason. Our number one job up there should be the safety and security of our citizens, not releasing criminals, not saying you can keep, a certain class of citizens don't have to follow the law while another class of citizens do have to follow the law. That's not what we're about. We're about safety and security of all of our citizens, not releasing people who are murderers, killers, rapists, child sexual predators. And I always believe when a jury gives somebody 3 life sentences plus 118 years, that's a pretty strong message to the parole board. Never let this person out of jail. And our governor, our lieutenant governor, our administration, and the Democratic majority has decided that they want to let all these bad guys out on the streets, and then they want to treat our police officers like crap. So you're taking the authority away from the police officers. You're putting them in harm's way. The smartest thing we're going to have to do is increase the budget for body bags, because that's what's going to happen if we continue to eliminate no-knock warrants. You can only serve warrants between 9 to 5. It's not very smart what's happening. If you look at our who votes yes and no, you'll see the Republican majority has always voted to support our police officers, public safety, safety and security of our citizens. And Jen brought up a minute ago about the compassion when Barbara Favola came out and said, don't you guys have any compassion? Yeah, we're very compassionate toward the victims. We think the criminals should serve their time, and
what was her
should be a
response to
prevention.
that? What was Barbara's response to that, Jen?
where's the compassion? Bill is exactly right. I mean, we have compassion for the victims, whereas their side is very compassionate towards criminals. And that bill, that Senate bill that you just mentioned, that it specifically prohibits law enforcement officers from sitting on these citizens review boards, which those are the people that know their community best. It's like telling a healthcare provider they can't sit on a healthcare board.
So the people understand. So the bill, the Citizens Review Board bill, you can't have law enforcement on the committee, and they know it best. And so,
right. And it also gives
and who chooses on this committee?
It gives that board a lot of power. They have power to subpoena people, and their punishments are binding for those police officers. So I think, and with all of these law enforcement bills, this criminal justice reform bills that were passed, I mean, the messaging that we're sending to our law enforcement, especially right now, we've seen what's happened to them this summer. We relied on those guys. Those are the people we call. They're not the best paid profession out there. But they do so much for it. They keep our community safe. They keep our families safe. They keep our neighborhoods safe. So the messaging that this is sending to them, these bills that are passed, we're just trying to find places to hammer these guys and make their jobs harder to do and less safe for them. And that's the real problem out there, is that message we're sending to them. We met with Ken Stolley a couple of weeks ago,
the sheriff of Virginia,
sheriff of Virginia Beach. And just listen to kind of the change in attitudes. So the Virginia Beach shooting, he's like, we couldn't buy a meal in this town. Everybody wanted to open doors for us, buy us a cup of coffee. He's like, and now people are just so non-respectful. They shut doors in their face. It's a complete turnaround 180 of the respect that's out there because of the culture change. So, and that's a problem.
Tim Anderson, weigh in. I mean, you're on the other side of this sometimes. You're defending people. What do you think of this criminal review board, this police review board thing?
It's dangerous. I mean, it's dangerous. The message that we're telling police is, we don't trust you. Mm-hmm. That's what we're telling them. Mm-hmm. We live in the safest city in the United States. It's peer reviewed. Virginia Beach is the safest large city in the United States. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so, how do we need a citizens review board in Virginia Beach? Our community policing has worked fantastic. We have for years. Our police department is the gold standard for police departments in the nation. They should follow what Virginia Beach does and copy it for every jurisdiction in the country. Mm-hmm. And so to give a group of citizens subpoena power, and as Bill said, even more importantly, we can't do no-knock warrants. So you have a hostage situation, and there's a guy with a gun, and it's domestic, and he's going to kill his wife, and the police have to now knock before they come in. Oh dear, we're coming in, letting you know. And there's a car driving down the road with guys shooting at him. Police can't shoot back at the cars. It's insane. Mm-hmm. It's insane. We're just telling police, we don't trust you. You're bad. The criminals are right, and that is not a community. The community's not. That doesn't make us safer. That makes us more unsafe.
So Senator Reeves, weigh in here. So you can't change it, right? I mean, it got passed. The governor signed it. Done deal. So what happens now, Senator Reeves?
Well, I think we step it up and you see the results of what happens. And look, the bottom line is all my colleagues are right. The Democrats have done nothing to make our lives easier, better, or safer, especially not safer. So what you're going to see is I got an email from a Richmond City police officer the other day, because I am literally the last cop in the General Assembly, saying I've had enough. 9 years, I'm done. It's not worth it. And so you're going to see some resignations. And what you're going to see is coming in a couple more months, you're going to see the qualified immunity bill back, and a lot of these bills that we built a consensus up in the general public to fight against. I personally led that fight against qualified immunity by video and attacking some of my colleagues in the Senate, and they retributed by killing a couple of my bills for that specific reason. But we're going to continue to be on the offensive on it, because if we don't stand up and back the blue and back those people that put on that uniform and that vest and that badge of authority every day, then we're going to continue to have more of this chaos. And if people want to live in that, then that's what they're going to have. Because, look, cops are reasonable, prudent people. They go to work each day. They don't want confrontation, I can tell you. But they have a duty that they want to serve. But at only a certain amount of risk. They're only willing to risk so much, right? They're already risking life and limb, truly. You don't know what call is going to be the next violent call where from 0 to 2 seconds you're going to pull a weapon and have to shoot it, or what? Yeah, stupid.
Let me read a text here from Adrian in Richmond. Calls in. Number one, he says, "I love Reeves, so that's good. You got a fan." He says at least one. He says arrest warrants from 9 to 5. So I'm a criminal, Reeves. Let me get this straight. He calls you Reeves. I just stay away from my house till dinner time. Great. Let's get all the criminals to know when we're coming, and then at 6 o'clock I can come back for hot dogs and beer, and I'm fine. Is that the rule?
It's a little worse than that, John.
Well-
Most criminal activity happens after dark, not during 9 to 5.
Right.
So when the criminal activity is happening, you're not going to be able to serve a warrant. You're not going to be able. What if somebody's kidnapped and you've got
So
a
what
kidnapped
about you,
victim
like
in there?
what about these emergency warrants that people get? You know, you see on Law and Order where they knock on the judge's door at midnight and wake them up, and they said we got to get the sign now. So those are gone.
Well, you can still do emergency warrants. An exception to that would have to be signed by a judge. So you'd have to have an exception to every single one of those. And that's where you're going to run into problems. It's what you're doing is you're creating an environment for criminals to succeed and for victims to be continuously victimized. So you're hurting the safety and security of not just Virginia Beach, but the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. We have truth in sentencing, and that's been there for a while, almost 20 years. And everybody knows if you do a crime in Virginia, you're gonna pay for it. Just like every criminal knows if you punch a cop, you're gonna serve jail time. Now we passed the bill. Not we. I voted against it. So did Jen. So did Bryce. But they passed a bill saying it's okay to assault a police officer if you're not in the right mental state. Okay, I had a drink. I wasn't in the right mental state. I smoked a joint. I'm not in the right mental state. I had crack or whatever, and I'm not in the right mental state. So it's okay to punch a police officer. That's crazy. That's insanity. You know, this Democratic majority has lost complete control. They've lost their mind. They've gone to the liberal side and completely lost their mind. Safety and security of our citizens is the number one thing that our job as public officials, that's our job.
Crazy.
That's the number one thing we should be worried about is safety and security of our citizens. If you're not safe, if you're not secure, if you don't feel safe and secure, you know, what are you thinking? Imagine, this was one of my speeches on Friday. Imagine being a 37-year-old woman. You're walking down the store, the grocery store line. You've got your 2 to 4-year-old daughter with you. And this is actually what happened. You're walking down the aisle, you turn the corner, and you get a cold wave just rush through your body. You're staring at the rapist who raped you 20 years ago, was given 66 years in jail, and now you didn't know the guy was out. By law, they're supposed to give him 45 days to the victim. 45 days before you consider letting that person out, you've got to tell the victim so they've got an opportunity to say, hey, don't let this bad guy out. Commonwealth attorney, you're supposed to tell them 21 days so they can protest it. Nope. This guy got out 3 months ago. 3 months ago. The victim didn't know anything about it. The Commonwealth attorney, the first they heard of it was when my office called, and we called and said, hey, did you know this guy was out? 3 days after my speech, the parole board sends a fax over to the Commonwealth attorney saying, hey, we let this bad guy out. That's insanity. That's crazy. For every victim that's out there, we're putting them on edge. We're making it worse. Our compassion, or the Democratic's compassion, I'm not going to say ours because I don't believe in this. The Democratic compassion is for the criminal. They're the ones who broke the law. Oh, miraculously, these guys have been reformed. Yet another guy, he was given 3 life sentences plus 118 years. He's out on parole. He's in our neighborhoods. He's walking the streets. He's a multiple killer. He went and killed people. Got another guy given 99 years. Home invasion, shoots the guy in the head, shoots his 14-year-old son in the stomach, shoots his wife, beats her, shoots the 9-year-old daughter, grabs the 5-year-old by the neck, shakes her like a chicken trying to break her neck. The 11-year-old hits him with a broomstick. He grabs her, drags her out into the yard, and he's out in our streets. He's back in our neighborhoods. What the hell are we thinking? The Democrats have lost complete control. Over to you, Jen.
Senator Kiggans, I mean, how do you respond to this?
Well, I'll say one thing about special session in a lot of these criminal justice reform bills. We were not able to hear from the law enforcement community. I feel like they deserved that seat at the table. We needed to hear their voice, their concerns, just to be able to advocate for their jobs and what they do. And because we're in that virtual environment and these bills go through committee first, but it's the committee's chair really prerogative if they're going to let these people speak, how many they're going to let speak, how long they're going to speak. So I feel like that component was really missing. It was missing in committee. It was missing on the floor of the Senate. We did not give our law enforcement and all people who are victims as well. I mean, we heard from some, but not a lot, just because the environment we were in, this virtual environment, which and again they were rushing a lot of these bills through, and we needed more discussion.
This discussion we're having right now, I'm going to get to Senator, and thank you, Senator Kiggans. This discussion we're having right now with Senators Reeves, DeSteph, Tim Anderson, and Senator Kiggans, this is like an untold story. I mean, I run a newspaper, and I think we kind of covered it, but not in because it never came to light what they were doing.
Right.
I got to put my guys on this immediately, so they're going to be calling all you up to get comment, because this is outrageous. I mean, Senator Reeves, I mean, how is your community reacting to this? How are cops reacting?
Well, like I said, John, we did an initial video when this qualified immunity was coming through, because that would have been the dagger in the heart to the law enforcement community, right? It's like the best way I can describe qualified immunity is the Good Samaritan law, right? You pull over on the side of the road to try to help somebody during an accident. You're not a doctor or a nurse practitioner like Senator Kiggans or Senator Donovan is a doctor. You have no medical training and the person bleeds out, whatever, and they come after you and sue you. Well, the Good Samaritan law is there to say, hey, wait a minute, that's not really, they were operating in the educational background to which they had, which was probably limited. Same thing. You take that away, it's over. And so I think what's happened in this session, I think both Jen and Bill have gotten it right, and I think Tim's on the right mark, too, with some of the things he's been doing. They cover up all the wrongdoing. Senator Lucas has got 2 felonies. You don't hear much about that anymore, but let Bryce Reeves catch COVID, man, it makes national news. Look at the parole board. If it wasn't for Bill bringing it up all the time, he and Mark Obenchain, it's corrupt, yet they do nothing. No one has lifted a finger. There is so much there when you start looking at the redacted reports on the parole board that they've broken the criminal code, yet no one enforces that stuff because they get a pass on it, and it's got to stop. I mean, it is absolutely asinine to think that these people can continue to make the pay that they're making over a six figures to be on this parole board, yet their votes aren't counted. You don't know who's voting how and what's happening, and then they're releasing criminals without having to divulge how they're doing it and why they're doing it and what their thought process was. I mean, and it's no one knows because they're doing it under the cover of darkness. I mean, there are so many. I told the constituent the other day, and if I see anyone getting fired up like Bill, it's because I am. I told the constituent the other day, it's going to take me a week to sit down and go back through all this legislation that just got shoved through and pull out all the parts to it to figure out how the heck it's going to affect us, because there's so many bad things. It's like, pick your poison. Right? We still don't even have a budget, and we're going to be in session again in 2 months. What does it matter at this point? Because what are you going to do in 2 months that's going to radically change the budget? And we put more into spending.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Before Tim goes on, let me say one thing, then I'm going to hand it over to Tim because I really want to hear his comments. But Bryce and Jen, you'll remember when Scott Searville stood up on the floor of the Senate and said, we just have to pass it. It doesn't matter, or we're going to be here all day. I did a point of personal privilege hammering him on that. Scott Searville said, we just have to jam this through. We've got to get it through. We have to pass it. We'll deal with the ramifications later. He said that. I did a point of personal privilege hammering him on it, saying, we're the Senate. We're supposed to think about what we're doing. We're supposed to be the deliberative body. We might as well change the name of the Senate.
Tim?
I think it can be simplified down to this. The Democrats are making us more unsafe, and the Republicans are fighting against that. So, I mean, look at Bill. All right, he threw up a bill. I was just reading it because I didn't remember the number, but I watched it when it came up. 5073. Here's his bill. Very simple. You riot and you bring a weapon, it's a felony, right? Who could not be for that, right? You riot, you cause a public disturbance, you bring a weapon. We're going to make
you smash a window.
That's right.
Define rioting.
Yeah, 3 or more people coming out doing something very dangerous, causing a destruction. That's how it's defined under the Virginia Code. And Bill says, hey, if you have a laser and you're going to point it at a cop, or you have a weapon, you're going to
blind them.
Yeah, that's right. You're doing something. That's a felony. That's not a felony right now. It's only a misdemeanor to riot, believe it or not, in Virginia. He says, hey, I want to do this. Who could not be for that? All the Democrats. It died in committee. Jen comes up with a bill, and Jen's passion is nursing homes, right? And all these people are dying in nursing homes because of COVID, and we can't even get the numbers out. Her bill dies. And so what are we doing? Every bill that comes out from the Democrats is, how do we empower the criminals? How do we reduce their punishment? How do we punish the police for doing their jobs? That's what they're doing, and Virginia has to wake up and see what's happening. And we shouldn't really look so much at what's passed, but what didn't pass. Because when you look at what didn't pass, you will see what the Republicans do to make the community safer, and that's the talking points moving forward, is what were they trying to pass that we never heard of.
Well, the second part is that the bills will be back during regular session. Just because they didn't pass during special session doesn't mean they're going to tweak them, make them probably worse, and reintroduce them again in regular session. So in my final point, elections have consequences, and we say that over and over again, but if you don't like what's going on in Virginia, people need to get out there and vote next year when state elections are happening, because elections, we've seen what the consequence of the last election was. So get out there and vote, please.
All right, listen, this has never been picked up the way you guys have been gals.
There was no media in the room. So interestingly, there was very few media in the room, and I was surprised.
Was my star guys there?
I don't know. There were very few media. I will say that, during regular session, we know where they sit, they have special places, and we know who they are.
So
but during special session, very few media.
He covers the state's center for us.
Tall guy, right?
Hey, John.
I think he was there a little bit.
Go ahead, Senator.
Let me just chime in on what Tim said, and my colleagues will verify this. I put a bill in that would set up a matching fund for body cameras for all law enforcement in the state, right? Because cameras, they don't lie, right? You see it, you see what happens, all that sort of stuff. Comes out of the Senate 40-0, right? Goes over to the House. I'm sitting waiting to testify on the bill. The day that I'm supposed to testify on that bill, it never comes up on the docket. They pocket veto it. The House doesn't even put it in their budget. If it wasn't for advocating with Senator Howe, who's our chairman, we wouldn't have had a body camera bill. I still don't know if it's going to make it in the final budget, but the bill got killed by the Democrats, never even got a hearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your bill 57. Your bill 5057 too, Bryce, got killed as well. I mean, we're talking about holding people accountable for rioting. That's what happened all summer long, rioting. And Bryce, proposes a bill that talks about the violence associated with rioting, and they don't even want to talk about it. How can they not want to talk about it when Richmond is still under siege? I mean, the police department in Richmond is guarded by dump trucks. And, Bryce throws up a bill that says, hey, maybe we should enhance some penalties here. Democrats won't even talk about it. How?
They won't even clean up the graffiti. I mean, LeVar Stoney, you walk down, you guys have done it, right? You've been in Richmond. That's where my businesses are. I mean, I can't take, somebody comes in from out of town, I can't take him downtown. I'm embarrassed of my city. I can't take him down there. They plywood all over the place. F this, F that. Pigs, put them in jail. Murder. I mean, disgusting stuff. Block after block. The city of Richmond has a graffiti department that they're paid to get rid of graffiti, right? LeVar Stoney will not deploy them. He leaves the graffiti up because he's running for mayor in November, and he's like, well, that's my base. They'll get mad at me if I take down the F word. I mean, this is the city now that we live in. It's mind-boggling. And the fake news media, the Richmond Times-Dispatch, Virginia Pilot, which doesn't even exist, Daily Press, Joke, Washington Press, outside of the Virginia Star, and Amy in Southwest Virginia, great reporter, Amy Friedenberger. I mean, those are the only two people that even report on it.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't exist.
The Democrat National Convention, when they showed all the states, everything was like, here's North Dakota, here's South Dakota. Virginia was the graffitied monuments. Nice. I don't know if you saw that, but it was the graffitied monuments. They are wearing it as a badge of honor that the graffiti exists in the Capitol.
Here's the other part. Speaking of the DNC and the RNC, last night, and I've been saying this for weeks. You watch on the news, Kamala Harris had 25 people out there at her big event. Had a crowd of 25 people, huge crowd. You go on the other side, Trump had about 5,000 people. And they said, yeah, Trump had a disappointing turnout. Yet Kamala Harris had a crowd of 25 people. And most of those are campaign people or Secret Service.
It's incredible.
They're the folks you send to forward deploy before you show up.
Yeah.
It's like,
her
give me a
husband
break.
was here yesterday. Did you see that she was in East Beach? And
I
very
gotta get a word
sparse
from our sponsors. Everybody stay